Newcastle United have slumped to their worst defeat of the season so far, as yesterday they meekly surrendered 3-1 at Brentford. So I want to ask, does Eddie Howe favour too many players such as Dan Burn, Joe Linton and Nick Pope? Is he too stubborn, and will he actually change from a 4-3-3 formation? Because I don't think it's working. And a lot of people have been asking this in the last 24 hours, is the manager's job under threat? I'll explore that and more in today's video. Let's get going. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Monday. Hope you're all well. Thank you so much for watching and welcome back to the Magnificent Mags channel. Now, where do I start yesterday picking the bones out of that dismal defeat? When I left London Stadium 8 days ago, and like I said, I recorded my video outside King's Cross before I came home last Monday. And I was like, I needed to sleep on it. I was far too frustrated and bewildered at what I'd seen down there. And I'd even joked with the lads when we were leaving that Mick McCarthy meme where that he's asked, it can't go on, can it? Well, I was like, it can't get worse than this season, can it? Well, it can. That was dismal yesterday. And look, I have slept on it. We watched the match at mine here yesterday, and then we went down to Tynemouth because we're going to see a friend who's a local acoustic musician, Dave Linus, at the Priory. So we're seeing him, but we thought, look, we need to decompress after that, let off some steam. So we went for a few earlier drinks and went and watched the City-Liverpool game at the Sal, because honestly, that was such an awful game yesterday. And I'm not going to try and dress it up that like the game was anything that it wasn't. That is arguably, it's now, 4 years and 2 days since Eddie Howe became our manager. And I honestly believe that is the worst performance I've seen, even worse than West Ham in his 4-year reign. That was just... honestly, I honestly feel, I hate using these words, but it was limp-wristed, it was pathetic, it was spineless, and that the players looked lost and Eddie Howe looked lost. And look, there's many reasons you can go through this, but I did say at the outset of this video, do I think Eddie Howe's job's on the line? No, I don't. I'm going to say that's my personal opinion. And I've put my head above the parapet today, and I've actually went on X and other social media sites to see what people's reaction is to the defeat. And I'm seeing a lot of people saying, right, his time's done, he needs to go. But look, I'm confident that the owners still have every faith in Eddie Howe, and Eddie Howe's got enough credit in the bank. Look what he's done previously. I know you don't like to look back, and he's not the type, but you go, he's took her from 20th to the top 4. Then we'll finish 7th amongst the worst injury crisis going. We're in a Champions League group of death, and we're still in it on the final day against AC Milan. He took her to a cup final against Manchester United when we've had the worst League Cup record ever. And then we went and won it. We're the current holders. And then we got 5th last season, didn't we? When it's normally not a Champions League spot, but the coefficient with how England done, the English team's done in Europe, we got it. So look, he's got enough credit in the bank. He deserves the time to stay on. That's my personal opinion. Look, you mightn't agree with that, but this is my channel, so that's my opinion on that. But do I defend him yesterday? Does he get a free pass for yesterday? No, he doesn't. I feel we've got to this point now. One of the reasons why we've been so poor, I think, because obviously it's St James's. I'll say it's the formation I want to get onto, but it's St James's. We've got all us, a raucous home crowd, and we play higher up the pitch, and you can't shirk at St James's because you've got 49,000 home fans there, when you're not including the away fans. So there's nowhere to hide there. Away from home, yes, you've always got the fervent travelling support, always loud, but the away form this season's been worrying, and I've looked into it. The last time we beat a Premier League club away from home who is still in the top flight was West Ham United. That was the 10th of March, and that was 6 days before the final. And I went even further back than that to see the last Premier League team we beat before West Ham in the Premier League, and it was the 4th of January at Spurs, 2-1. That's how dismal it's been, because away games since then have obviously been Birmingham in the FA Cup in February, Arsenal as the first leg of the Carabao Cup semi-finals, so it's not been good. And look, well, there has been good away performances. You could, you could say first half at Leeds were shaded it, and then after the hour mark, Leeds arguably could have won it themselves, so I felt the point was fair. We were good at Aston Villa on the opening day, but you caveat that where we didn't have a striker. Anthony Gordon played through the middle. But other than that, it's been dreadful. We were lucky to get a point at Bournemouth. And then you go to Brighton. We've lost to Brighton. We've lost to West Ham. Now we've lost to Brentford. And you could say Premier League teams are stronger than European teams. But going on to the formation, I apologise for going off on that tangent. Has it been figured out? Because we've always been a team since Eddie Howe came in where we've always been on a mid-block and we've pressed teams and then smothered them. But right now, look, I understand, like, we've had a change of personnel up front. Isaacs went to Liverpool and it was an unsettling summer. And we've been in this system where the players are so used to, like, utilising Isaac's strength and he always played off the shoulder. But Voltemada, for me, I'm not going to criticise Voltemada too much. Yeah, yes, he needs to get in the box more. But while we haven't got Johan Wissa, Voltemada's not fit in a 4-3-3. And I figure 4-3-3's been figured out because what do we used to do? Press them. Now we're not pressing teams. What they know to do is just let Voltemada come deep. And then the wingers aren't bothering the backsides to get beyond him. They need to get beyond Voltemada to create the space in behind. They're not doing that. So teams are like, we'll just soak up the pressure. And yesterday we were sloppy with the ball, kept giving it away. And they've done a lot of high balls, despite having a tall defence, like Pope in goal. And then you've got, obviously, Chow, Botman and Byrne. But Brentford were content to just soak it up. They were waiting for us to make an hour. We made countless of them. And then they just went off on the counter, didn't they? And then once they bypassed that midfield, they've got a free run on with defence. And yeah, it was so frustrating because the game started so sloppy, didn't it? Like I said, Brentford were content to hit lots of long balls. They were trying to, like, win set pieces. They were using Coyote's long throw-ins, which resulted in the equaliser. We kept giving them so many corners. Malik Chow, I felt was the pick of the bunch yesterday. And it wasn't a bunch who scored highly. On that fan analysis app, if you're on there, Magnificent Mags, the Sky app, it's coming out of beta soon, but that's the app where I give my ratings on after every game, and I didn't score many players highly. Malik Chow is the highest. It's out of 100, and I give him 65. I think I give Barnes about 55, 60, in the fact he's the one who scored a goal, and he was full of energy and, like, positive passing, but then about 15, 20 minutes after that, he just went missing. But Jacob Murphy went missing. Dan Burn should have been sub. We're all calling it before you give away the second pen that was given against Ouattara. But yeah, it was just a catalogue of errors yesterday, and I just don't get it. But I feel like our team looks lost. Eddie Howe looked lost. Like, even at West Ham last week, I said he felt lost because what did he have? He had Kraft at right back, who was dreadful. Then he put Malik Chow there. Then he went to Jacob Murphy, and then Sandro Tonali at right back. That was a head scratcher, as I said in my post-match reaction to West Ham last Monday. But Eddie Howe looked lost yesterday. Like, everyone knew what subs we had to make. Everyone could see it, bar the man who's responsible for them. And you just had a load of them on the bench looking at this iPad when it was just the eye test when they're on the pitch. You could see what needed to change. And look, I can go through the players. Because, like I said, I feel 4-3-3 is not working. It doesn't suit Voltemada. Like, it might work when we get Wissa back, but I don't think that would get Wissa in. I think we should be more pragmatic and maybe go to a 4-2-3-1. Like, you could even have, look, we're best two midfielders, you could say, Bruno and Tonali. I think they absolutely are. Look, I touched on just before there that Bruno and Tonali were two best midfielders, but I'm not even going to defend them from yesterday. They were both awful as well. They just weren't at it. They looked tired, they looked fatigued, they looked lost. And anytime they got possession, they just lost the ball. They were both anonymous all game. I just felt Brentford's midfields even ran rings around them. And that's not something I've said very often. And then if you need the pacey wingers, I know Alanga hasn't produced, but Murphy, other than he's crossing, and that, if he doesn't do that, he offers nothing else. And that, like, he's been good this season, where, like, in patches where he's got his assist, but you'd have Alanga for his pace on the right. You'd have Gordon or Barnes on the left. Obviously, it'd be Barnes at the minute. He got the goal, and Gordon's been off the boil massively. Voltemada would be in that 10, in that 3, and he'd behind Johan Wissa. You've got the runners in behind. Voltemada dropping deep would work. But teams, like I said, are just happy to sit in, be content, soak it up, where they're giving the ball away or we're not creating enough, and then they just hit one on the counter. And like I said, yesterday was just a scrappy start of the game. Obviously, the main chances were the free kick. It came in from Damsgaard, who I felt was very good. He's always been a good player for Brentford. Pope, I felt done well, I'll say this. Pope didn't have a good game, but he done well because it bounced in front of him. and then it came to, I think it was Nathan Collins, I believe it was, and then it nearly fell to Thiago, and then it got recycled, came to Hickey, put it back in, and then Dan Burn managed to get it clear. But yeah, other than that, like going on Nick Pope, he didn't have a good game. Other than that save, like those couple of saves, because he like parried it, didn't he? Then it like kind of ricocheted off the inside of his legs. Other than that, Pope was flapping it crosses. His kicking was awful. When he was kicking it short instead of hitting it long, he was making the wrong decisions. This is what I mean. If he hit it long, it was coming straight back at her because no one was bothering to challenge, and they were beaten warily. And then if it was played short, it would just invite the press onto her, and the pressure and would lose it, and they were coming straight back at her immediately. And then go to it was a catalogue of errors for the first goal after half-time. Well, actually, I'll come on to that in a sec. I'll praise us for the goal. Look, I've got to say, obviously, Barnes played it to Murphy. Murphy's only contribution before he done a disappearing act. Put a good ball into Voltemada. Voltemada's awareness, yet again, fantastic. One of the only times he was in the area where he just had the awareness to know Barnes was behind him. Barnes was faced up by Coyote and Yarmuluk, and then he dropped the shoulder, sent them for a half-time pint, and then drilled it under Kelleher's legs. And he thought, great, we've got that platform. Goals win games. We haven't scored many of them this season. I think that was only with third or fourth away from home. Don't quote us on that right now. But yeah, we got the goal, and you thought, right, we can push on. But then we just went missing. We dropped back. We're retreating deeper and deeper. Invited Brentford on. They could have been level. Threatening with the long throw from Coyote. And that's what eventually led to it, didn't it? We just went into it. It was like, I don't know if you had Super Mario when you were in the 90s on the SNES. I used to love that as a kid. But you remember you jump on one of those like lizards in the shell, and then they'd go inside the shell. That was us yesterday, to describe it, if I have to in some way. That was like us. We went inside with shell. And it's like Brentford then, just like Mario, booted away when you jump on top of it. And it was depressing to watch. Honestly, I've never felt that in years. Probably since Eddie Howe came in. The last time I felt that depressed was, I think, the 1-1 draw at Watford. Steve Bruce's last game before he was sacked after like Tottenham. They gave him the 1,000th game. So yeah, I haven't felt that bad in years. But watching that, I just felt the equaliser was coming. Sometimes you're like, oh, they could get something here, but you still feel we're resolute enough to get rid of it, but you just felt it was coming. Then Coyote's long throw. Pope should have stayed on his line. I'm not saying he would have saved it, but he would have been in position for his header like this. He might have parried it, or the second ball might have fell. Someone might have cleared it, like when they had the free kick, what I mentioned in the first half. But Botman got it all wrong, flicked it away from Pope. Pope was in no man's land, and then Sharda just headed in. And then the second goal, again, it was a catalogue of errors. Like I was saying, the warning for Dan Burn, he was absolutely rinsed all game by Ouattara. And look, Dan Burn, he's done admirably for a while, hasn't he, in that left-back role? But look, Lewis Hall needs to come on. Everyone, we were here screaming it. Everyone I was talking to in the WhatsApp group with the lads, they were screaming it. To get Burn off. The warning sign was where he got away with that first pen. I thought the pen that wasn't given, and obviously they'll give a yellow card to Ouattara saying it was a dive. I felt that one was more of a pen than the one that was actually given. And I think the officials realised that, because once he gives the yellow, you can't really overturn that with VAR. So when he gave that one, I think that's why they give it in the first place, that second one. And yeah, that was the warning sign though. Eddie Howe should have seen that warning sign that Burn was getting turned inside out. And he was on a yellow. He was clearly rattled, because first off, you saw him turn round to the crowd when they're giving him stick, taking a long through, and he went, I'm not going to say it on camera. I don't want to swear on camera to you, but he told him to F off, didn't he? And he should have hooked him at that point. And then he waited until the pen was given. Nick Pope was concussed after he went for that high ball, wasn't he, beforehand? He should have been off immediately for Ramsdale. He stayed on because he fell awkwardly. And then he makes the subs. Ramsdale comes on when the pen's given. Burns hook for Hall. Bizarrely, Willock comes on for Tonali. If you're going to take Tonali off, I would have brought on Miley to anchor one more, and it would have freed up Jacob Ramsey. So I just felt that, like, because Willock, I just feel Willock's done here. Like I said, there were a catalogue of errors to the team. Even when Bruno had the one chance there that I think he put in second half, Voltemada wasn't in the area. We didn't have a shot on target since we scored a goal. That's disgraceful, that. So yeah, just a catalogue of errors throughout that game. Like I said, Burn give it away. It wasn't the best pen from Thiago. He just rolled it slightly left of centre to Ramsdale's left. But yeah, once Brentford got that goal, even when we brought on the likes of Lewis Miley too late and other players. Like I felt when Jacob Ramsey come on, he injected a bit of energy, a bit more legs, because Joe Linton done nothing. He looked tired, he looked fatigued. And then his shin pads, as my mate called it, they look like a bar of soap. I said it looks like a drinks coaster. This, I got this in Amsterdam from the Bulldog. That is literally what Joe Linton's shin pads were. What are the days where you used to wear shin pads with the ankle protectors around them? I used to love them. Yes, you'd sweat, but you used to get clattered Sunday league. And if you got clattered on the shin, you could break your leg. I don't get why players don't wear good shin pads these days. What's the fascination with things that like that and this wide? Honestly, I just don't get it. Joe Linton was anonymous though. And then Ramsey came on from, but then he faded too. And like I said, yeah, once it was 2-1 and we brought subs on, Alanga and Willock, I don't really think they could affect the game. It felt like our heads had dropped, the game was gone. And Malik Chow, I feel bad for him because Trippier's experience. Trippier didn't even get into the game. He'd offered nothing offensively, a bit loose with his passing when he was in possession, got beaten a few times defensively. Brentford were better in every department. And Malik Chow, who's the better of the other three defenders. He was the best of the back four, bailing them out with his recovery pace. He's sweeping up. The amount of times he saved Sven Botman, who was lifting, by the way. And it was summed up by the third goal. That's when we left. We didn't even stay for the final whistle. When that third goal went in, we were so angry. We just left and got the bus to timeout. But yeah, that just summed it up. Obviously, the ball in. Malik Chow with an excellent interception. Botman should have got that, turned, and even if he just hoofed it, like, it's the 95th, 96th minute, maybe one last chance, get bodies forward. If they hit you on the counter, so be it. The game looked gone, but he could have played it to Ramsdale, Ramsdale could have hit it long, but no, he lets it go thinking, did he think like Ramsdale was like the edge of his area? He could have like claimed it or kicked it. Botman just ball watched, let it just run past him, and Thiago couldn't believe his luck and gleefully just tapped it in to the back of the net past Ramsdale. It just summed up how much of a shambles yesterday was. But I do feel the team, yes, look, I know we've been in transition. We went from a player who plays on the shoulder and Isaac to Voltemada, who's different. And yes, we are missing Livramento. He's key, like I said. If we're under pressure or Livramento gets it under pressure, he's someone who can wriggle free and get up the pitch. Lewis Hall will do that. And we're missing Wissa as well, aren't we? Like, he'll be key. It'll ease the burden on Voltemada when he's there and he's a focal point and running behind up front. But we don't know when he'll actually be back because they're being ultra cautious with him. But yeah, so there is reasons you can say, look, we haven't got our best players there, but those players are still quality players. They've got a lot more ability than we've seen yesterday. And look, I'm not saying they didn't care yesterday. They do care because Trippier came out and apologised. Bruno did as well. So the players do care. I'm not questioning that, but they just look so tired and they look lost in that formation. I just feel like 4-3-3 is like done. It's run its course. Teams have figured we're out and we need to change to something more practical, like that'll work, that'll like maximise the players in the right positions in a 4-2-3-1, especially when Wissa comes back. I don't see where Wissa fits in with Voltemada in a 4-3-3. Eddie Howe needs to be adaptable. He needs to show he learns as a manager and progresses. Like what he's done for it, he goes down as a legend here. That's in no doubt at all. Winning World Trophy, a 4th place finish, 7th and 5th. I still think he deserves time. I don't want him out, but yesterday he got that badly wrong. And the fact we've only got, what have I said? Spurs, 4th of January. In 10 months, we've got 1 win against the current Premier League team away from home. The other 2 after that were Southampton and Leicester, and they're both in the Championship. So yeah, it wasn't acceptable yesterday. It was a dreadful, pitiful, spineless performance. And I feel the formation needs to change. Eddie Howe needs to learn some lessons. And I do feel he does have favourites in the team. He refuses to drop Dan Burn. Me and the lads think this. I was saying as Dan Burn got a family member of his hostage in Blythe, like he keeps playing Dan Burn. And look, Dan Burn's been fantastic. He's a local legend. He's a Geordie hero. Well, what he's done, his cup final goal and all that. But Dan Burn, for the sake of being Dan Burn, like Eddie Howe, is it because he's going to the World Cup next year? He wants to play him in the squad so he keeps his England place. Like, well, that's admirable. All I care about is Newcastle. Like, England are there anyway. It's the break. I welcome the break. But Dan Burn, I'm glad he's not going to be playing against City because the way Doku destroyed Bradley yesterday and they've got Ford and Marmoush, the T1000 in Haaland. He's in great form. He's fit this season. But you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if we turn up against Man City under the lights, a 5:30 game on a Saturday. If everyone had had a bit of a drink, we'll probably get a point in that. Well, even if we're putting a good performance and lose, because Manchester City. But yeah, it just feels like we're just turning it on when we've got an important fixture like Europe or something, or defend the cup. We can't turn it on against the so-called lesser clubs in the Premier League. Like but you look at it, Union, Belgian champions, not a strong league. Benfica aren't what they were. And then you see Athletic Club with us, the strongest opposition. No, we'll have harder tests, I believe, at Marseille and PSG. But it looks like lower half Premier League teams are stronger than European teams. And we're awful, underwhelming league form at the moment. We're closer to the relegation zone than the top 5. I believe it's 6 points off top 5, but we're 2 points off the bottom 3. That's unacceptable. And it's compounded, obviously, because Sunderland are doing well at the minute. And you know what? I just want to put this in there. I'm not wearing any goggles right now. They've started very well. Their manager's rotating, and yeah, I watched the weekend games. I watched them against Arsenal. They edged the first half. They deserved to lead. I'm not going to say they didn't. They deserved to lead. Arsenal came out, different team, bossed them second half, but then they got the equaliser at the end. They've got hearts. They've got gut. They've got character. That's what we've had the last few years. Where's it now? It went missing. Where is that team? Where is that team? That's all I want to know. That the players have got to have it in there somewhere, and we've been through difficult periods before, and Eddie Howe's got out of them, because Brentford last season were kryptonite, and it was again this season. I thought West Ham could be like with Brentford last season. We could use it as a springboard. There were some home truths. Eddie Howe said they didn't fly back last season. There was issues with flying back, so they had to get the coach, and he made them watch that back. Well, I hope he does for the players once they return from international duty, and those who aren't away, made to watch that game again, because that was unacceptable. And those poor travelling fans, I felt it last week at the London Stadium. Those who travelled there yesterday, that was pitiful, and that's not representative of our club. I have to admit that. We're paying fans, all are, and we expect better. And yeah, like I said, I thought West Ham would be the springboard where we could correct our way form against Brentford. Yes, they've done well at home, but we've generally had the upper hand against them in the Premier League. 10 games, we've won 8, drew 1, lost 1. Or so that's 8-1-2 now, it reads. But yeah, it just didn't work, did it? You thought we could exercise, with Christmas coming up, the ghosts of G-Tech past. Well, we didn't, did they? That was honestly, I have to keep saying it, it was dreadful. That's one of the worst games I've watched in years, and definitely the worst under Eddie Howe. But you know what? I'm normally dreading international breaks. I usually hate them, but I think, you know what? Well, they say a game in a few days' time is normally a good thing. It wouldn't have been this time. I don't even think I would have been mentally up for it to go and watch it. I would have still went, but right now I wouldn't have been. So I think the break comes at the right time. We can reset, but it makes you think, despite having a bigger squad, our team who can't get the balance right between European games and league games. Like domestically, we're doing well in the cup, but let's face it, we've only played Bradford in the third round, and then Spurs. Spurs is probably one of our best performances. We beat a team who've done well this season, but there's not many good performances. You could say Arsenal were all right, but then we naively tried to win it, and the beat were from a set piece at the end. That was on us. Liverpool were the better team. We're 10 men, so I'll admit that. We beat Union, but again, Belgian champions from a weak league. Good on the opening day against Aston Villa. But that's probably 4, maybe 5 performances out of how many games this season? 11 league games, 2 cup games, 4 Champions League games. That's 17 games, 4 or 5 good performances. That's barely a quarter, you could say. That's not even a third that we've played well in. So it is worrying. You've got to be concerned, but you've got to think he's got enough credit in the bank and he's turned it around before, so you've got to believe that he will do it again. But yeah, I believe the international breaks come at the right time, and we've got to try and figure it out. And I feel a change of formation's welcome. But if we see Tino Livramento on the bench against City, and obviously Lewis Hall's going to be left back, I feel we'd be better. But my team against City would be a 4-2-3-1. And I would go with Ramsdale, Trippier right back, Shaw right centre-back, Chow left centre-back, Hall. Midfield would be Bruno, Tonali in the 2 of the 4-2-3-1. And I'd go to 4-2-3-1 for this. Look, I know Voltemara drops deep, and we are missing Asula and Wissa. But I'd just try something different, catch City off guard. Have Alanga right. have Barnes left, and then Voltamada. Look, even say if Gordon's back, interchange him with Gordon. I know I don't like Gordon as the number 10, but have Gordon as the centre forward and Voltamada as the 10 and make them switch. At least he would have runners in behind with lots of legs. But look, that's just my thoughts on it. But yeah, yesterday it wasn't good. Only Malik Chow for me stood out. A lot of the other players just didn't step up, and it was very poor. But anyway, that's it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of what I've said? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think we need to change and do better to get our league form back on track and get we're climbing that table, because it is very concerning at the moment. But please like, comment, share and subscribe, and I'll be back on my next video. So for now, take care, enjoy the break, stay safe. Bye-bye.